It was 2 in the morning on a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that feels like it's actively trying to break you. When the most powerful woman in Chicago gripped my wrist in the fluorescent aisle of a 24-hour Walgreens and begged me to lie for her. I didn't know who she was at the time. I just knew she was wearing a red dress that cost more than my car. She smelled like expensive vanilla and terror, and she was looking at me with eyes that were screaming for help, while her mouth tried to maintain a corporate smile. I'm Caleb. I'm 36. I look like I haven't slept since 2019. And at that moment, I was holding a bottle of children's ibuprofen and a bag of frozen peas because my 7-year-old daughter, Maya, had spiked a fever and twisted her ankle jumping off the couch pretending to be an astronaut. I was wearing my work uniform gray coveralls with Vance Science Center custodial stitched over the pocket, and I smelled like floor wax and old coffee. So, when this vision in crimson grabbed me, my first instinct wasn't romance. It was to check if I was being mugged. Please, she whispered, her nails digging into my skin, her voice shaking so hard it barely carried over the hum of the refrigerator units. There are photographers outside. Just pretend you're with me. Pretend we're on a date. Please. I looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the layers of professional makeup and the perfectly coiffed blonde hair, I saw a woman who was drowning. She wasn't just scared. She was hunted. But here's the thing about me. I spent 10 years as a systems engineer, designing fail-safes for aerospace grids before my life fell apart. And if there's one thing I learned, it's that introducing false data into a system only leads to a catastrophic failure later on. I gently peeled her fingers off my wrist. I don't rent out my integrity. Lady, I said, my voice rough from disuse, and I don't lie to cameras. I saw her face crumble. It was like watching a skyscraper implode in slow motion, and for a second, I thought she was going to faint right there next to the Pop-Tarts. But then the automatic doors slid open with a hiss, and the chaos poured in. It wasn't just one or two photographers. It was a swarm. Flashing lights, shouting voices, that aggressive, hungry energy of people who make money off other people's misery. They were shouting her name, Evelyn. Evelyn Vance. Is the merger failing? Is it true you're being ousted? Evelyn Vance, the CEO of Vance Logistics. My boss's boss's boss. The woman who owned the building I cleaned every night. She froze like a deer in headlights, completely paralyzed by the onslaught. And in that split second, I didn't see a CEO. I saw a person who was about to be torn apart. I didn't lie. I didn't pretend to be her boyfriend. I just did what any decent father would do. I stepped in front of her. I'm 6'2" and broad from years of hauling industrial trash bags and scrubbing marble floors. So when I stepped between her and the lenses, I blocked her out completely. I grabbed a family-sized box of churros from the shelf, held it up to shield my face, and used my other arm to guide her back. Move, I told her, low and steady. Back aisle. Now, we moved. We didn't run. Running makes you look guilty. We walked with purpose. I guided her past the frozen pizzas, through the stockroom doors which I knew how to open because, well, janitor privileges, and out onto the loading dock where the air was biting cold and smelled like wet cardboard. Go, I said, pointing toward the alley that led to the main street. My truck is out front, but you don't want to be seen in that. Go left, to blocks, hail a cab. She stood there, shivering in that thin red dress, staring at me like I was an alien species she hadn't encountered in her boardroom. You helped me, she stammered. Even after you said no. I said I wouldn't lie, I told her, checking my watch because I really needed to get that medicine to Maya. I didn't say I wouldn't help. There's a difference. She opened her mouth to say something else. Maybe to offer me money. God, I hoped she wouldn't offer me money. That would have ruined it, but I just turned and walked back inside to pay for my peas. I thought that was it. I thought I'd go back to my quiet, invisible life of mopping floors and teaching Maya about the constellations on the weekends. I was wrong. The next morning, the internet was on fire. The video of the Churros hero was trending on Twitter. They couldn't see my face clearly, but they saw the Vance Logistics logo on my coveralls. The headlines were brutal. CEO. It was tempting. God, it was tempting. But I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the same fear I'd seen in the grocery store. just buried under layers of arrogance this time. "No," I said. Her composure cracked. "Excuse me. No, I'm not going to be your prop, Evelyn. You're letting these men, your father, the board, dictate your worth based on who you're sleeping with. If I do this, I'm just validating their bullying. You don't understand." She snapped, and suddenly she wasn't the CEO anymore. She was just a desperate daughter. "This company is my life. I built the renewable shipping division from nothing. I doubled our profits in 3 years, but none of that matters to them because I'm single and emotionally volatile. If I lose this, I lose everything." Just then, the double doors swung open and my direct supervisor, a guy named Rick who enjoyed power trips a little too much, stormed in. He didn't see Evelyn in the shadows of the Mars exhibit. "Thornton," Rick bellowed, his voice echoing off the planets. "What are you doing standing around talking? The toilets in the south wing are backed up again. Stop flirting with the tourists and get your hands dirty, or I'm writing you up for insubordination. You're a janitor, not a tour guide. Know your place." I jaw tightened. I was used to Rick. I usually just swallowed it. But tonight, with Evelyn watching, the shame burned a little hotter. "I'm on my break, Rick," I said calmly. "I don't care if you're on your honeymoon," Rick spat, stepping into the light. "You." He stopped dead when he saw Evelyn. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a ghost. "Miss Vance," he stammered, sweating instantly. I didn't know you were." Evelyn stepped out of the shadows. She didn't look at Rick. She looked at me. She looked at the man who had cleaned her floors and refused her money, getting treated like dirt. And something in her eyes shifted. The ice melted, replaced by fire. "Rick, is it?" she asked, her voice dangerously soft. "Yes, ma'am." "Operations manager, you're fired," she said. Rick blinked. "What? You're fired?" "Effective immediately. Pack your things and leave my building." "But you can't." "Over a janitor?" "He's not a janitor," she said, her voice ringing clear as a bell. "He's the most overqualified person in this room, and he has more integrity in his little finger than you have in your entire career. Get out." Rick scurried away like a rat. Silence descended on the solar system. I looked at Evelyn. She was breathing hard, her hands trembling slightly. She had just offended me. She didn't have to. It didn't help her board situation. In fact, firing a manager on a whim would probably look like volatility to them. But she did it anyway. "Okay," I said. She looked at me, confused. "Okay what?" "I'll go to your gala, but not as your fake boyfriend." "I won't lie." "Then how?" "I'll go as your friend," I said. "And I'm bringing Maya, if you want." The fallout was immediate, but not in the way we expected. Sunday was a blur of panic attacks and pizza. Evelyn stayed at my small apartment because paparazzi were swarming her penthouse. Seeing the CEO of a Fortune 500 company sitting on my lumpy beige couch, eating pepperoni pizza while Maya braided her hair, was surreal. It felt right, it felt like a family, and that scared me more than any board meeting. But Monday morning, the world ended. At 8 a.m. Every screen in the Vance Logistics headquarters and in Evelyn's home office went black. Then a red skull pixelated onto the monitors. RANSOMWARE. It wasn't just a hack. It was an execution. The entire shipping grid was frozen. Ships in the Atlantic, trucks in the Midwest, automated warehouses, everything stopped. The company was bleeding millions by the minute. Evelyn's phone exploded. "It was Silas. You did this." He screamed through the speakerphone. "Your negligence. You fired the ops manager. The IT director quit in protest, and now we're under attack. The hackers want 50 million in Bitcoin, or they delete the shipping manifests. We don't even know where the ships are, Evelyn. You're finished. The board is meeting in 1 hour to accept your resignation and pay the ransom." Evelyn dropped the phone. She looked pale, defeated. "He's right. It's my fault. I was distracted." I picked up the phone and looked at the code scrolling on her laptop screen. I recognized the signature. It wasn't a random Russian syndicate. It was a sloppy, aggressive code, focusing on the specific legacy servers that handled the biometric data. "It's not random," I murmured, my brain shifting gears from dad mode to engineer mode. "This is personal. Someone with inside knowledge of the architecture is doing this." "Who?" Evelyn asked, wiping her eyes. "Does Arthur Sterling have a nephew? Or a son?" Someone in tech. Evelyn's eyes widened. His son, Marcus. He was our chief information officer until I fired him 2 years ago for embezzlement. Get me to the headquarters, I said, standing up. Caleb, you can't. Security won't let us in. I'm the head custodian, I said, grabbing my keys. I have the master keys to the basement servers, the physical servers. If I can jack directly into the mainframe, I can bypass the remote lock. We drove like maniacs. I parked my beat-up Ford truck right on the front lawn of the glass and steel Vance Tower. Security rushed us, but Evelyn stepped out, radiating that terrifying CEO energy even in yesterday's clothes. Stand down, she ordered. We are resolving the crisis. Anyone who touches him is fired. They backed off. We ran. The server room was in the sub-basement, a freezing cold room filled with the roar of cooling fans. I didn't need a password. I needed a screwdriver. Arthur Sterling turned white. Silas Vance stopped breathing. Your son, Evelyn said, looking at Arthur, attempted to destroy this company to frame me. And you, she turned to her father, were ready to let him do it, because you couldn't stand the idea of your daughter thinking for herself. The room was deadly silent. Arthur, Silas finally said, his voice ice cold. You're off the board, and I'm calling the FBI. Silas turned to Evelyn. He looked tired. He looked old. Evelyn, save it, she said. I'm staying as CEO, but things are going to change. We aren't going to be a company that eats its own. And Caleb? She turned to me. Caleb is my new chief technology officer. If he wants the job. She looked at me, terrified I would say no. I looked at the suit I was wearing. I thought about the mop bucket. I thought about Maya's tuition. But mostly, I thought about the way Evelyn looked at me when I was talking about code like I was a rock star. I'll take the job, I said. But I leave at 5 p.m. every day. No exceptions. I have a daughter to raise. Evelyn smiled. Agreed. 3 months later. It was a Tuesday again. But it didn't feel like it was trying to break me. I was in my new office, which had a view of the lake, reviewing the new security protocols. My phone buzzed. It was Evelyn. Meet me on the roof. I took the elevator up. The wind was whipping off Lake Michigan, cold and biting. But Evelyn was standing there near the railing, wrapped in a thick wool coat. Everything okay? I asked, joining her. Better than okay, she said. Stock is up 12%. The new community outreach program you suggested is a hit. And my dad invited us to dinner. He wants to apologize. For real this time. Miracles happen. I chuckled. She turned to face me. The city lights reflected in her eyes. You know, that night in the grocery store, when I grabbed your wrist, I was looking for a shield. I wanted someone to hide behind. I know, I said. But you didn't let me hide. She stepped closer. You forced me to stand up. You saved my company, Caleb. But I think you saved me first. I reached into my pocket. I made you something. I pulled out a small wooden box. I'd spent the last month carving it in my garage after Maya went to sleep. It wasn't fancy engineering. It was simple carpentry. She opened it. Inside, resting on velvet, was a small, intricately carved wooden gear. And inside the gear was a key. What is this? She whispered. It's a key to my apartment, I said. And the gear? Well, that's just to remind you that even the biggest machines rely on the smallest parts to keep moving. She looked at me, tears spilling over her lashes. You're asking me to move in? I'm asking you to come home, I said. Maya asks about you every day. She says the apartment is too quiet without Queen Elsa. And honestly, so do I. She didn't answer with words. She just closed the gap between us and kissed me. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was better. It was cold noses and warm lips and the feeling of finally stopping the run. We stood there for a long time, the CEO and the janitor turned CTO, watching the city breathe below us. But here's the thing, and this is why I'm telling you this story. People love a happy ending. They love the rags to riches trope. But the truth is messier. The board is still suspicious of me. Some people still whisper that I slept my way to the top, ignoring the 20 patents in my name. Evelyn still struggles with her father's toxicity. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if we did the right thing. Evelyn risked the livelihood of 5,000 employees that night at the gala. just to defend my honor. Was that brave? Or was it reckless? Is love enough of a reason to burn down an empire? I look at Maya, sleeping safely in her room, and I look at Evelyn, reading beside me in bed. And I think the answer is yes. But the world is cynical. The world says you should protect the asset, not the person. So, I'm asking you, if you were in that grocery store or in that ballroom, would you have played the game? Would you have taken the money and fake dated the CEO? Or would you have risked it all to be real? Because let me tell you, being real is terrifying. It costs you everything. But looking at the woman holding my hand right now, I think it's the only bargain worth making. What would you have done? Let me know. Caleb out.